unbelievably delicious marinated chicken, scratch-made pita bread, and pickles, and the garlickiest substance known to man, known as toum. I've talked before about how one of the best things about having grown up in the Metro Detroit area is the massive variety of food. And one of the most flavorful and delicious options in the culinary world of the southeastern Michigan area is Lebanese food or Mediterranean and Middle Eastern food in general. And as is many other people's, my favorite dish from the Lebanese world is chicken shawarma. Commonly sold and served as a sort of rolled up pita sandwich, chicken shawarma is all about both the marinade and the technique for cooking. And it all results in just the most succulent, delicious, tender, amazing chicken meal maybe you've ever had. So in this video, we're going to be going through every step to make basically every component of this chicken shawarma sandwich completely from scratch. We're making the marinade, we're making the pickles, we're even making the pita bread. And no chicken shawarma sandwich is complete without this creamy, super garlicky white sauce known as toum. I know this intro's ran on longer than it probably needs to, as most of my intros do. So let's get right into it and start making our chicken shawarma. The key to delicious chicken shawarma is the marinade, and this is a yogurt-based marinade. So into a big bowl goes 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt, followed by some minced garlic, a little tomato paste, lemon juice, olive oil, and a splash of white vinegar. Now for a whole bunch of dry seasonings: allspice, black pepper, ground cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, ground coriander, cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, ground nutmeg, paprika, salt, turmeric, and ground sumac. Whisk everything together until it's completely smooth and looking beautiful. And I'll have the full recipe in the description below with the full measurements and quantities of everything. Now for the chicken. Boneless, skinless chicken thighs are the standard for shawarma, and they don't need a whole lot of prep. The main thing I'll be doing to them is pounding them a bit flat with a meat tenderizer. I want them to be pretty thin and uniform in thickness. Now I've got those thighs in a large Ziploc bag, and in goes all the marinade. I'll squish and squeeze and turn this bag until I'm sure that all the chicken is fully coated. Now into the fridge it goes until tomorrow. You don't have to marinate it all night long, but giving it at least a few hours is going to produce a better final product. Okay, it's the next day, and it's time to get this chicken ready to cook. I'm going to be essentially roasting these chicken thighs after stacking them on this vertical skewer. And I can see right away that I should have cut these thighs in half so they fit better and stack higher. No big deal, I'll just do that now. Now my stack of chicken is looking perfect, and it's time to get the barbecue fired up. I'm going to be cooking this chicken in my offset smoker, so I'll first get some lump charcoal burning. Then into the firebox it goes. And while I'm using the smoker for this cook, I'm not really trying to smoke it. So I'll be using all lump charcoal and no actual wood splits. Doing this will basically turn my smoker into just a big charcoal fired oven, and that's exactly what I want. I'll mention that I could have just put the charcoal beneath the chicken right here in the same chamber, but I wanted to be able to add more charcoal as needed without having to remove the chicken and the grill grates each time. So using the smoker firebox just made sense, and it gave me a good low roasting temperature that worked great. When it's all heated up to just about 325 degrees, it's time to set in the chicken. And I really thought my barbecue was tall enough for this vertical skewer thing, but it looks like I've got about 1 extra inch on that thing, preventing the grill door from closing. So, as they say, improvise, adapt, and overcome. Now I'll just stick a thermometer probe down into the chicken so I can tell exactly when it's done cooking, and we'll come back when that meat has an internal temperature of about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. In the meantime, there's lots of other stuff to do. First, we need some pickles. I actually did this part a few days ago because pickles are always going to taste better once they've sat a while. We're doing basic Middle Eastern style pickled cucumbers, which aren't really a whole lot different than other dill pickles. I'll start by making the brine. Into a pan goes some white vinegar, water, kosher salt, whole peppercorns, and coriander. Again, the recipe will be in the description below. Give it all a good stir, and now I'll bring it up to a boil on the stove and then reduce it to a simmer for 10 minutes, which gives us just the right amount of time to get everything else ready. First, I need to slice up a couple pounds of cucumbers. I'm using these smaller, thinner pickles, the perfect pickling cucumbers, particularly for a shawarma sandwich. Now to pack the quart-sized jars. First, I'll throw in some fresh dill sprigs, followed by a bunch of whole garlic cloves, and then, of course, the cucumbers. This batch is the perfect amount for 2 quarts. Then I just need to ladle in that hot brine. Now these jars will just sit on the counter until cooled, at which time I'll put a lid on them and refrigerate. To clarify, I'm not heat canning these jars. These are just some good old refrigerator pickles. Next, we have to make the toum. This is the insane garlic sauce that you can get at Lebanese style restaurants. It's absolutely delicious and inexplicably tastes somehow more garlicky than garlic alone. I'll start by peeling 2 large bulbs of garlic, and then I need to slice each garlic clove in half because there's a little sliver of stuff inside called the germ that we have to remove. This is because leaving the germ in there is said to make the toum taste bitter. So as tedious as this step is, I'm going to do it. Now I've got the food processor out and in goes all that garlic, along with a couple teaspoons of kosher salt. I'll process this on low speed until that garlic and salt turn into a consistent paste. I'll mention that several times during the processing steps, I'll remove the lid and scrape down the sides. I need to make sure everything is making lots of contact with the blades. Next, we need to start adding the lemon juice and olive oil, but we need to do it in a certain order and at certain intervals. I'll start with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and let it process for a minute. Then 2 tablespoons of olive oil, let that process for a minute. And then gradually drizzle in 1/3 cup more olive oil. I'm using a tablespoon to drizzle my oil since it basically forces me to go very slowly. We need this mixture to emulsify, and if too much oil is added too quickly, the emulsion will break and the toum will be ruined. From here, I just need to alternate between adding 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and 1/3 cup of olive oil at a time, until I've used a total of 1/3 cup of lemon juice and 1 2/3 cups of olive oil. When it's done, I have an incredible batch of light, fluffy, creamy, smooth garlic sauce that is guaranteed to keep vampires at a minimum 1,000-yard distance from your kitchen. Now into a bowl it goes, and I'll put a lid on it and refrigerate until I'm ready to use. And as if this already wasn't ridiculous enough, we might as well make the pita bread from scratch too. Once again, I'm doing a Lebanese style pita bread, rather than something like a Greek style pita. First, I'll combine my yeast with water that's heated to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Give that about 10 minutes to bloom, and when it's looking nice and foamy, in go the rest of the ingredients. All-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, salt, and olive oil. With my dough hook in place, I'll run the mixer on low speed for about 3 minutes until a nice lump of dough has begun to form. Then I'll kick the speed up to medium and mix away for another 5 full minutes. And yeah, you guessed it, the full recipe is in the video description below. Now the dough's ready for its first rise, so I'll lightly oil a bowl before turning the dough out onto a floured surface. I'll give it just a couple quick kneads before forming it into a ball and dropping it into that bowl. Rub the dough with a little more olive oil, then cover the bowl with plastic wrap and set aside to proof for 1.5 hours. At which time the dough has at least doubled in size, and it's time to divide it up into our individual portions. So back onto a floured surface it goes, and I'm going to segment this out into 210 gram hunks. I'm going for some pretty big 12-inch pieces of pita bread here, and I'll only actually get 3 of them out of this entire batch of dough. Once I've got my 3 segments of dough, I'll form them each up into a tight ball and give them the old table roll to make sure that the bottom seam is nice and sealed up. And now they're just going on a lightly greased baking tray, and I'll give them a light brushing with some more olive oil. Now to cover them with some plastic wrap that's also been greased, and I'll let these rise for a second time for 15 to 20 minutes. Now it's finally time to turn these things into some pita bread. Back onto a floured surface, I'll begin rolling each ball of dough with a rolling pin. I basically want this thing as thin, flat, and round as I can get it, and I'm historically pretty bad at rolling out dough, so I'll just do my best. And I guess that has some similarities to the shape of round, which is good enough for me. And to help me deliver this dough to the cooking surface, I'm going to transfer it onto a greased pizza peel. Today I'm cooking this pita bread on the flat top insert in the propane grill section of my combo smoker. I've seen people make pita bread in the oven, and I've tried it this way, but I've definitely had the best success doing it on a large griddle. With the flat top heated up to pretty darn hot, I'll slap that dough on there as flat as I can and quickly close the lid. Once the heat begins rapidly turning the moisture in that dough into steam, the whole thing will start turning into a giant bread bubble. And this is exactly what is supposed to happen. And after less than a minute, it's ready to flip over and do the other side for not quite another minute. This can go from perfect to burnt quite quickly, so definitely don't take your attention off of it. And as I finish cooking each piece of pita, I'll cover them up with a couple towels to keep them warm and soft until ready to use. Now, after what has been something in the neighborhood of 3 hours, my chicken is done and it is looking absolutely mouth-watering. I'll bring this inside and let it rest for a few minutes before it's finally time to start slicing. I'll just shave off thin bits of that chicken with a very sharp knife until I've got enough for my first sandwich, which we are officially building now. Onto my still warm pita bread, I'll go down with a nice smear of that toum garlic sauce, followed by a generous mountain of that chicken. Lastly, you absolutely cannot forget the pickles. Now to just roll the whole thing up as tightly as I can. And just as a finishing touch, I'll wrap it up in some sandwich paper for streamlined hand-to-mouth delivery. I like to do the double half wrap, so when I'm ready to eat, I can just yank one side right out of there and dive in. Now, from the people I've talked to from around the country, chicken shawarma doesn't really seem to be a commonly known thing in most areas. I think there's little pockets of Lebanese and Middle Eastern and Mediterranean food hubs around the country, maybe Southern California, probably New York City, but Southeastern Michigan, definitely. But that means that a lot of people watching this video right here probably really have no idea what the heck chicken shawarma is, or at least they didn't before watching this. And if you can't get your hands on one from an actual Lebanese restaurant, you owe it to yourself to try making it at home. Do you need to make the pita bread and the pickles? No, of course not. Do you need to go through the whole thing where you stack the chicken thighs vertically on one of those skewer things and roast it in a grill? No, you can just do it in the oven, on a baking sheet or something like that. Or just marinate it and barbecue it on the grill like you would any kind of chicken. You can find the ingredients to make all this stuff at any normal grocery store, with the exception of maybe a couple of the spices in the marinade and possibly the toum, which though is made out of entirely normal grocery store ingredients. And if you are familiar with chicken shawarma, or more specifically chicken shawarma sandwiches, let me know how you think mine stacks up to the ones that you've gotten or made yourself. I'll put some links in the video description below to the full recipes for, well, everything. The marinade, the toum garlic sauce, the pickles, and even the pita bread. And I'll also throw some links down there to some of the tools and gadgets and things that I used in the making of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay up to date with all our latest stuff, including future cooking and barbecue videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm John, and this is Great Lakes Country.